So in this video, I'd like to share with you the text structure I like to use when introducing extended constructed response essays to students. Now, certainly there's lots of different opinions on the best way to teach it, and there are a lot of different ways to teach it because informational text and argumentative text, they have different text structures. My thinking is I always like to first base it off the information we have from our TEKS in our state, looking at the rubrics from the state, looking at the scoring guides from the state with those examples, as well as looking at the scored essays from years past. So from that information, I like to then make it as simple as possible. I can always bring in other structures later, but this is how I like to start. I like to explain to students that all ECR essays have three parts. Part one is the most important. Part two is probably going to be the longest. Part three is the easiest, but you need to make sure it's there. So in part one is the most important because it is going to have their central idea in informational text writing or their claim in argumentative writing. They will have a prompt that they have to write about. We've typically seen those start with the word explain. They're explaining why something happened, they're explaining how something happened, or they're explaining their opinion about something should or should not. So, to make that easy and very clear, we remind students that they need to use words from the prompt to answer the question and either cite two reasons or ways in that central idea, or use a phrase like in a few ways or for a few reasons to make the central idea or claim more global. All right. So if they say, explain your opinion about why you should or should not be rewarded for recycling, you could say, I think you should not be rewarded for recycling for a few reasons. Or you could say, I think you should not be rewarded for recycling because it's something you should do anyway, and it also causes more trash. So either way, whether it includes reasons or ways, or it's more global, will still be a really nice central idea or claim. But they need to understand that they need to use words from the prompt to answer the question. One thing I see a lot of misconceptions about is telling kids to restate the prompt. Well, many kids will restate it. They think that means recopy it, and they never answer the question or develop it into a central idea or claim. So that's why I don't like to tell them to restate it there, because they'll just rewrite the prompt but never really develop it into the central idea or claim, which is essential to get them some points on the rubric. Now, the second part of the essay, I like to tell them, is the longest. They always want to know how many sentences something needs to be, and I'm flexible on that. But again, for some kids, especially those that really struggle a lot with writing, I do like to give a guideline if possible. So in the second part of our essay, we're going to give our first reason. If my first reason was, I think you should not be rewarded for recycling because you should do it anyway, okay, then I'm going to let them know in that first sentence. My first reason is, I think you should recycle anyway. Then I need to give text evidence that supports that reason. If my next reason was, I think you should not be rewarded for recycling because it causes more trash, I then want to follow up with text evidence from the text I read to support that reason. So that will be the biggest part, that longest part of my essay. The third part, here is where I really will have them use the word restate. You need a nice closing sentence to close out your essay in a nice way. So you want to restate your claim or your central idea, but change the wording just a little bit. So you could say, in conclusion, I think you should not be rewarded for recycling because, and then you can just change the order of the reasons that you gave in that claim or central idea sentence. Once I've introduced the three parts of the ECR essay to students, I'll do a chart like this and we'll complete it together. looking at what we've read and then what information we need to use to complete our ECR. So it's almost like a fill in the blank version of an essay because that makes it pretty attainable to everyone. And then as we go, we'll start giving them more and more choice within how they'd like to frame their essay. So on the right, you can see those three parts of the essay underneath the prompt. And then on the left, you've got again the three parts, but I've started some of the sentences for them so they can pull out the reasons, the words from the prompt, the text evidence, and then the restatement of the claim.